Hi everyone, today what I'm going to be doing is making my own Mayhems Pastel UV Blue coolant. So here's some of the things that you'll need in order to make this coolant. Okay, so first what you'll need is this Mayhems Pastel UV White. It comes in a 1 liter bottle. What you'll also need is this Mayhems Clear UV Blue dye, as well as some Mayhems Deep Blue dye. Okay, so in order to change Mayhem's pastel range, you're going to need a lot of dye. Now, don't be discouraged if you end up having to use a whole bottle of blue if you really want like a deep blue, but for me, I'm not going to be going that deep, so I'll probably end up using about half of it. But first, what I want to show you guys is what the Mayhem's Pastel UV White looks like with just no additive dye or UV clear blue in it, just with a cold cathode so you guys could get a feel for what this fluid looks like under a UV cold cathode light. Okay, so here we have the pastel UV white under a black light. Now you can see it gives off a pretty good UV effect. Now remember, it is in a big container, so once you put it in your smaller tubing in your computer, it's going to give off a good glow. But what I'm going to do next is add the UV clear blue. I want it to make the effect a little stronger, so I'm going to go ahead and do that first before I add the deep blue dye in it. So just a quick recap. Again, what I'm going to be doing first is adding the clear UV blue dye into the pastel UV white coolant, just to give the UV effect a little brighter glow. And I'm going to be taking account of how many drops I put in, just in case you guys want to make the same color that I do. Okay, so we're going to start adding the drops. Now you're not going to be able to really notice it here until I mix it in with the coolant, but just a reminder, when you're adding this, you want to go until you start to see your UV effect start to dim instead of brighten. That means you're at your limit, and you're going to want to start adding your deep blue into it. Okay, so I'm just going to keep adding 5 at a time, and I'll be mixing it and showing you guys the results as I go. Okay, so this is after 5 more drops for a total of 10 drops. Okay, so here's after another 5 drops, bringing the total to 15, and you can start to see the bottom of the tubing there really start to glow now. Okay, so we added another 5 drops, bringing the total to 20 drops. So I'm just going to give you a little tour here, see what it looks like with 20 drops in it right now. It's definitely brighter than what it used to be with no added UV clear blue, but I'm going to see if I can get it a little brighter than this, so we're going to go ahead and keep going. Okay, so what I did was I went ahead and added just another 15 drops, bringing the total to 35 drops. Now you could definitely tell it's lightened up a bit, and as before, now it really penetrates the bottle over halfway through, as before, it'd barely go maybe a quarter in. So you can definitely tell we're making progress. I'm almost done here. I think it's really starting to peak at its highest, maybe another 5 or 10 drops, and we should start adding our deep blue. Okay, so I went ahead and added another 10 drops, bringing my total to around 45 drops. Now this just looks like a good time to stop and start adding my deep blue into it. Now, just a further reminder, when you add deep blue dye into this, it's going to kind of diminish the effect. So the deeper blue you add into it, you're going to, further diminish the effect. So over time, the UV effect will sort of go away. So you will have to do some maintenance and just add some drops here and there until you get the effect back to where you want. Okay, it's now time to start adding our deep blue dye. Now, unlike before where I've added 5 drops at a time, with this stuff it's so concentrated that I'm going to be adding 1 drop at a time. It's always better to be safe than sorry when you're adding this stuff because it can change your color very fast. Now, like I've said before, the pastel range is pretty hard to change, so I may be end up using half this bottle. But just to be safe, I'll be just adding 1 drop. See there, I just added my first drop. Now, unlike pigments and paint, when you mix color with light, especially with these dyes, you get a totally different kind of color. So the reason why I went with white pastel first is because it's going to first start out to be a really light blue. As you can see there, after mixing my first drop, it's a really light blue. So this gives me a lot of control over what shade of blue that I want. As you keep adding blue, it's going to darken the color. So that's the reason why I went with white. So again, I'm just going to keep you posted, and we'll start adding some more blue. Okay, so here's just after 4 more drops of the deep blue, bringing the total to 5 drops. Now it's still not the blue that I want, so I'm just going to keep going. But I'm going to show you guys what this looks like in UV light, just to give you guys an idea, of how much this diminishes the UV effect. So you can tell right now, not by much, it's still really bright, and so what I'm going to do is keep going. Okay, so here's after adding 5 more drops, bringing the total to 10 drops. Now, I want to point out that it is a little darker than what it appears in the video with that bright light shining on it. It kind of gives it a little brighter than what it is. But I want to hold off to adding more dye until I put it into the system, just for that lighting sake. I don't want it to appear too dark inside my system. So what I'm going to do is wait to add some more. But I will show you guys what the UV effect looks like. Okay, so here's after 10 drops of the deep blue dye with the UV light on, and I must say, it hasn't really dimmed it at all. I'm very happy with the results. So in the next segment, I'll show you guys what it looks like with the light on, with the UV light on, and that should wrap up my video for right now. Okay, so here we have the light and the UV light on. I must say I'm really happy with the results. I really like how it turned out. I want to thank you guys all for watching. Please comment, rate, subscribe. For my next upcoming part, we'll be adding the fluid inside the computer. And this is how to make your own Mayhems Pastel UV Sky Blue.